Well, hello there, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. And I say welcome back because it has been quite some time since Mizuno, you and I have been on here.
I think it's been a hot minute, DRF, but we're on episode 35 of this thing. Isn't that awesome?
That is awesome. I'm very glad that we started this 35 episodes ago. Or I guess 36 in a way, given episode 0. But let's not talk about episode 0.
Oh, that was so cursed. Oh my god.
It was a different time.
It was a different time. It was the baby child to what it is today. But we're here 36 asterisk episodes in, and we're going to be talking about some LAN stuff today. Jareth, what's the agenda for today?
Yeah, great question. So what we're going to be doing today on the podcast is going over some of the CCA League happenings. What's been going on the past couple of weeks? We're 2 weeks into the league, season 6. A lot's already going down. And we're going to kind of just give our perspective, our view, some of our takes. And then we're going to be jumping into a chat with Weef and Falco, who have had a big hand in a couple of things happening around the country with LANs. So it's going to be a very LAN-focused discussion today. I am super excited for this. But Mizuno, let's jump right on into it. We have, first up, the CCA League Season 6, Weeks 1 and 2. You can already see down at the bottom of the screen the CCA recap. That is all of the matches that have been played for Week 2. And there's a lot of very saucy matches that have been played.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm still kind of reeling from Week 1. I think just because with the dynamic of the league this season, with teams having a lot more flexibility with their reschedules, they have to play their matches no matter what during the regular season. So I think all the back and forth, I think that these teams are trying to figure out when to play their matches, I think has been pretty interesting to see. So I'm still kind of stuck in like Week 1 mode, and I'm thinking of all the different 4-0s that took place as people are trying to get back into the groove of things after being in the circuit from the fall semester. So I think teams are still trying to find their groove and find their rhythm a little bit. So I think we'll probably see some of the really saucy matches coming up here heading into Week 3.
Absolutely. But, you know, as we kind of start to recap some stuff, why don't we talk a bit about some of these matches that have occurred. What have been the highlights from these first couple of weeks? Cool matches to watch. Some surprises. Has there been anything else? Has there been anything along those lines that has stood out to you so far in our first 2 weeks?
Ooh. I'm gonna talk about the one that I did watch. So I caught the tail end of the H-Town and Daybreak match. I think that was the Week 1 matchup. And I found that one really interesting because it's a Texas matchup, right? It's is it Austin and Houston?
Daybreak is
right?
Austin, correct.
Daybreak is Austin. See, I always get them and Dallas confused. The two, like, Austin and Dallas.
Don't tell
teams.
them that.
Well, too late. Now everyone knows. I can't tell my Texas teams apart. So I caught the tail end of that one and stuck around for the Vandal Varsity and the Long Beach Blue matchup, which was so intense. I'm so glad I was able to, like, sit down on this one and be like, sitting down, sipping water, eating food, because that was such a good back and forth matchup. From these teams were Div 4 and the circuit from the fall semester. So kind of watching these two teams duke it out, they probably had history or have some adjacent results in some capacity, and kind of seeing them duke it out on stream was really good. And you were commentating that one too with
Yes, I was.
Was it Mulligan?
Yes, it was Mulligan who made their CCA debut on the mic. So that was a super awesome match. Honestly, I was kind of surprised at how intense it was. Between these two teams that, had both gotten swept in Week 1 and then came into Week 2, hoping to have some sort of redemption, some sort of intense matchup to contradict what was relatively one-sided on the scoreboard last week, and they delivered. Like, Vandal Varsity and Long Beach Blue would put on an absolute show. Like, I was very just excited to have been a part of that. And I'm sure that both teams were very excited to be a part of such a good matchup that really was one of the highlights of the entire week. We don't give a lot of love as we should to some of these, lower divisions, particularly like Div 7, Div 8, but Vandal Varsity and Long Beach Blue really conveyed why that Division 7 matchups are ones to watch, because that was so good. Like the different types of comps that were getting brought out as well was just so exciting. It was so fascinating. I was just intrigued from start to finish.
It was a gripping matchup. And I'm kind of hoping we get lucky with some of these matches coming up heading into week 3 with these types of matchups that we get closer and closer towards the end of the season. And some of these matches get really dire for some of these teams that are looking to clinch a playoff spot. And we're heading into week 3. We're like halfway at this point. Teams have, got to get their act together and, get to it, right? Like, there's only so many games that they could win for the rest of the season to head off into the second stage of the league. So a really great matchup, but Vandal Varsity pulling through against Long Beach Blue, and that was my interesting matchup from the past couple weeks. I still think about it.
Yeah, certainly. And like I know people are probably gonna be like, oh, here he goes again with DRF on his UCSD high horse, but like, I know, but like legit UCSD, I don't know how these idiots do it. They put themselves into Game 7 every single season, time and time again, and UCSD now goes back-to-back Game 7s against Old Bay Brigade and Southern Florida, and pull it out both times. And this most recent one was on the IPL channel. IPL had an absolute banger of a matchup between these two. And unfortunately the Southern Florida one was plagued by a couple of different disconnects going on UCSD's side. But nonetheless, it was such an engaging matchup. But I mean, the match for me that stood out the most so far this season is that UCSD versus Old Bay Brigade match. Nerdy Adam had streamed it. Absolutely fascinating watch. Like, if I have to tell them this every season. I basically go into the Train Splatoon server and say, hey guys, I need you to stop this, because there's only so much that I can handle watching you all play, and I already know the result, but like, I'm still nervous watching you all play, because you put yourselves in these predicaments where you're like, hey, they win this, right? I'm told they win this. And because they go down like 40, 50 points in late game situations in Game 7 and then pull it out. So if you did not get a chance to go see Nerdy Adam's stream of that match, please do so. That was the most fascinating watch that I've had so far this season. But it's been an absolute show all across the board. It's so good, all these matches that have been going on so far.
Man, yeah, all the different streams as well, outside of what we feature, right, on the CCA channels. Like you mentioned, the UCSD one was featured on IPL's stream. I think we need to talk about that for a second, because we are collaborating this season with our really good friends over at Inkling Performance Labs to showcase even more matches that we're unable to cover during the season, and having a dedicated slot. It's like Sunday Night Football. It really is. It literally is Sunday Night Football. If you think about it, we have it's the prime time slot with IPL. Whoever does it, like in the NFL, in actuality, I don't remember which provider it is, but it's literally like copy paste the same thing. We have like a prime time slot to feature some really cool matches, and I think these past couple weeks we kind of had this slew of like Southern Florida streams, which has been pretty cool, because then now these players and these viewers can kind of connect the dots and see, oh wow, they could see how this, Southern Florida team is performing here at Div 1 against these other teams, and you get a little bit of a story going on. I don't know if they'll be featured again, but we got some exciting stuff lined up with IPL, and they're just fantastic to work with. It's been great.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I really am thrilled by this IPL collaboration. I think it has been just mutually beneficial so far. You know, next week as well, we are going to have Omazen on the PodCCAst to kind of share all things collegiate Splatoon with the IPL viewership. And then later in the week, Popgun, and I'm not sure if it's going to be Popgun plus somebody else from IPL. I think that they're still sorting that out, but we will have IPL guests. We'll leave it at that for now, as that gets finalized. But IPL guests over on the CCA podcast. So it's going to be a really, really cool collaboration to kind of, you know, dive deeper into what this collaboration means for both organizations, some of the different things that we've kind of seen from each other so far. So for once, it won't be me or you, Mizuno, that gets to yap with the pop gun. Omazen's gonna go ahead and take the reins here. So I'm excited for him.
It's going to be great. Omazen has been a key part into making a lot of the production things behind the scenes happen for the CCA, and is making what the CCA branding to the viewers flourish so much. A lot of it is due to his wonderful work and credit, and his experience at Purdue as well as in other places throughout the community. I think is going to be really nice to bring in that CCA perspective. So I'm really excited to hear all these discussions in the next couple weeks with CCA and IPL. So I mean, it's just great stuff to have these wonderful conversations and just kind of learn and grow from each other. As silly as that is, it's just really great.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know, we're a grassroots community at the end of the day. Like Splatoon, just at its heart, overall is, and we're going to be talking a bit about that in this LAN discussion. But it's just such an essential part of, you know, our community's livelihood about building each other up. So I think that's just going to be really what the heart of the conversation is all about. But nonetheless, you know, Mizuno, we've gone through these first 2 weeks, I do want to talk a bit about as well the fantasy side of things, because our fantasy bracket is ongoing under some new ownership. You know, Nino's been taking the reins there. So there is, I believe, a few different updates. I believe this is all updated through week 2 now.
It is, yes.
So we do have Violet Nightbloom, who has just kind of pulled themselves ahead of the competition in terms of calling the shots on fantasy. So I'm really, really interested to see, you know, where Violet's picks are going to go from here, because so far there's an 8-point gap between Violet and Cyan, who is in second place. And then if you look at another 8-point gap, like that goes from like second all the way down to like 10th.
It's crazy. I was looking at it earlier and I just saw my name just slide down from week 1 to week 2, and I was like, yes, week 1 I'm ahead of DRF, let's go, that's as it should be. And then I go to week 2 and then I see this really sad news and I go, oh, I see, I've slipped off the ranks. But to your point, it's kind of interesting to see the split of, you know, the divide of how people's picks have been playing out. And I'm seeing a few of our staff members are performing also really well. They're paying attention, they know what's going on, they
As
know.
they should, you know, but
they're doing their job. And granted, maybe we're not.
Yeah, I always dedicate my fantasy to like hyping up the UCSD teams. You know, as a dedicated alumni as I am. You know, I'll support the UCSD teams. UCSD, please stop asking me for money. It is not going to happen.
Oh my god, well,
I literally got a letter the other day. Like, I'm like,
you have?
Yes, they sent me a letter. It was like, hey, good old buddy pal alumni, you know what would be great is if you gave this Giving Tuesday, which I guess is a national holiday, but for like UCSD alumni to give money. And anyways,
it's like their Thanksgiving. It's like their Thanksgiving. They have like these giving days like every year where it's like a big push to get money from people, because I think Purdue has the same thing, and it's like called like a giving something, or like they have it branded, and like they'll send all kinds of flyers, all sorts of things. They'll spam your email, spam your mailbox, and it's just nonstop. And it's like, I've given you thousands upon thousands of dollars.
Yes.
You don't need anything more. It's fine.
Oh man. Great. But regardless, as we start to look towards week 3, you know, Mizuno, I do want to put some bets out there.
Oh yes.
what do we think is going to happen coming into week 3? You know, why don't we start with just a couple of quick over-unders? You know, we've got some numbers to work with here.
You have numbers to work with. I just tossed out that idea, and you just took and you just ran away with it. I did not expect you to actually did a couple something.
I only pulled out a couple of numbers, given the time constraints and us, you know, trying to focus on this LAN discussion. But you know, let's throw out a couple of numbers here. You know,
okay,
82 matches are expected to be played every single week. Not every single one of them gets played. We have reschedules in place because schedules are complicated. It's prime spring break season. The quarter system schools are in their finals week right now. So a little all over the place. So with that said, 82 matches to be played this week. Over under 62 and a half matches will be played on time within week 3.
I don't know how to grasp that number yet. That sounds like a large amount still.
Well,
like,
to put it into context, 69 matches were played on time in week 1, but only 57 matches were played on time in week 2. So a pretty notable drop off from week 1 to week 2. So splitting the difference here, kind of going in the middle, 62 and a half games skewing slightly towards that lower number. Are we going to see over under that many number of matches, 62 and a half?
Oh, I'm going to say played on time. There's no way this many matches are going to be played on time. All of them are going to be pushed to the last minute, knowing college students. I'm going to say like 55 matches are going to be played on time. So what is that? 7 under?
Okay, so you'll take the under. I'm going to wholeheartedly agree with that.
Oh, that's not controversial at all. I'll be controversial. I'll go over then, and I'll say maybe closer, like maybe 65 matches will be played on time because spring break, people are going to be coming back, and I think all the week 5 matches are going to be played on time because it's the end of the season, right? You kind of save everything for last. So I'm going to say that.
Fair enough.
I clearly make bets in my free time. You could tell how I talk and how I think about this. Clearly, I bet every day. I am on the apps, whatever that they're shoving at me, the sports apps.
I was gonna say, like, you know, DraftKings or what are the other popular ones? You would think
sports
that
book or some crap
like
that.
ESPN shoves like so many like sports betting apps down your throat that you would think that at this point I would actually know them a little bit better, but
no, I haven't touched them. I have no clue what I'm talking about when it comes to over unders. I'm just like, oh, over under, and then there's like I think specific phrases for like I sound like a total idiot, but I have no clue. I'm just like, oh,
you gotta
funny
bet
numbers
against the spread.
Right, against the spread. So you're going under. I'll go over. That's against the spread. Boom. Clearly, I know what I'm talking about. Yes, I invest time into this. Yes, sports lingo. I do the sports. Oh, actually, one topic I want to make sure we hit on. We are going to have how do I put this in sports terms? +1? No, never mind. I'm not going to even bother. My point that I wanted to make is that before we segue into our segment here soon, I want to make sure that we give some time to shout out a big thing that we're introducing this Saturday at 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 a.m. Pacific, which is a crazy time. But anyways, this Saturday we'll be featuring our first ever Japanese commentary match featuring the VCU Big Fat Sea Cows and GMU Patriots. And it's going to go live on our YouTube Saturday morning.
Hey, that is so awesome. I mean, huge shout out to Koreki from UTK and Shu from Long Beach for throwing this idea out there and making it a reality. It's something that we've been, approached before about, and we said, you know what? Why can't we give this a shot? So so we shout out to VCU and GMU for allowing this set to be casted in Japanese. I am certainly hopeful that this kind of gets us, into the eyes of our overlords in Japan. I mean, that would be cool. And also, I welcome our season 10 champions, the University of Tokyo.
Yes, that would go crazy. Imagine the scheduling nightmares that teams have to go through to schedule a team from some Japanese university.
Oh man, that would be actual hell. Like, it would just not be possible. But at the very least, I think the good thing is that if we do achieve international league status, I mean, I guess technically we already are with Canada, but like, you know, outside North America, we start pulling in these European teams. We start pulling in Japanese teams. The great thing is that you only ever have to accommodate 2 regions at a time in a league format. You know, unlike the circuit where it's like, how can we get every single time zone to be willing to play at this same time? But when it's a league, you just need 2 teams, and regardless of where they are in the world, they can find a time to play. You know, even if it is a 12-hour differential, you know, it's gonna be, you know, kind of ass, but like you could always play 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. But, you know, luckily it's not that extreme as we talk about Europe and Japan. It's going to be, you know, more like, you know, 7-hour differences, 8-hour differences, which is completely manageable. So, I don't know, maybe one day, but a man can dream, right, Mizuno?
Exactly. And I'm actually really excited to hear how the commentary goes to a Japanese audience. My understanding, Koreki and Shu, these folks are fluent in Japanese, and I've heard from my understanding from the production team that commentary in Japanese is really interesting because of how quick, like, they can call out certain things that's happening just because of the way the language works. So I'm also really curious to kind of see and hear what's happening on the Japanese side, because I don't really watch a lot of Japanese Splatoon live streams or anything like that. So I'll be kind of interested to see how, like, the delivery that Koreki and Shu take to talk about these teams and the match itself and how that live commentary goes. I wonder how they're going to provide context, right, to a Japanese viewer. Like what VCU Big Fat Sea Cows or GMU Patriots, like, what does that mean to a Japanese viewer, right? Like, what's a patriot? I'm sure they can recognize what the Big Fat Sea Cow is.
USA. that's basically what they're gonna be like. Yeah, patriot. Yeah. It's these obnoxious Americans. That's what a patriot is.
You're right. Like the New England Patriots are, you know,
also
same
obnoxious.
Exactly. Both obnoxious parties right there. But I'll be very curious to see how they contextualize it to like a Japanese audience, because they're not going to know. Or like, what does the universities of like George Mason and Virginia Commonwealth, like, how do they describe the universities? Or would they even bother doing that? Or they just talk straight Splatoon? I have no clue. And I don't think I'll ever find out because I don't know Japanese.
Yeah, I'll probably understand like 2 words in the entirety of the broadcast, and that's when they end up sprinkling in, like, you know, a word or 2 of English when they have to inevitably explain these university names. But anyways, so we're gonna get ready to kind of, you know, transition into, you know, our chat here with Falco and Weef soon. But before we do, Mizuno, one more over under for you in terms of our week 3 predictions. We're looking at game 7s.
Oh,
I want your call here. 11.5 over under 11.5 game 7s in week 3. For context, in week 1, including the rescheduled matches that got played in week 2, of the week 1 matches, we had 10 game 7s, and in week 2 we had 13 of them. So slightly, you know, low ratios there, but hey, out of 82 matches, that's still not too bad. What are you thinking? Are we gonna be over that 11.5 or under?
I'm gonna say over. No, hold on. No, I backtracked that. I'm gonna over. I'm gonna say over. My rationale for that is these games are gonna get tighter and tighter as the weeks go on, and teams are getting a little bit more up to speed, more practice. Like, they kind of know the flow, they know how to approach these games and game plan. So I think some of these will be more nail biters than anything. So I'm gonna say over. I'm gonna say how would you like sport lingo this? Would you say like over by 2 or over 2 or
so over unders you typically just call out whether it is an over or an under. Like you get paid if you're correct. Like, is it gonna, and that's why anytime you see an over under, there's always like a weird like half, because you can't actually get half a game or like half a point. So like, if you were to bet, like, let's say LeBron were to score, like, you'll see like LeBron will score over under 27.5 points, today. So you bet either over if you think it's going to be over 27.5, or under if it's going to be under, and then you get paid if you're correct on the call, whether it's, if it's 28, then it's over. If it's 26 or less, then it's under.
Aren't there the ones too that like the mini bets along the way? What are those called?
Oh, the parlays.
The parlays. I learned that phrase recently. I had my friends parlay against whether or not my allergies test got better or worse, and I had a friend taught me parlay, but I proceeded to forget the word until now.
Yeah, parlays is a series of bets that can pay out a lot of money, but also basically become increasingly less likely.
Right.
Like you'll see people do like 10 game parlays where they basically bet on 10 straight games to see if they get it correct, but you only hit if you get all of them correct in order, and there's usually like cash out opportunities too.
Okay, perfect. My friend did not explain it as well as you did, so that makes a little bit more sense. But yeah, I had my friends basically parlay. I didn't know that was a phrase, but I had the parlay against like the results of like my allergy test, because I was like, oh hey, let's see which one got worse or better. Put down your over under. Which one got worse and which one got better? So now we all know the lingo.
There you go. That is sports betting 101 with DRF and Mizuno. Well, regardless, that's everything that you can expect, from the first 2 weeks, and then coming into week 3, just a couple of things to throw out there. But all of that said, Mizuno, why don't we go ahead and start dragging in Falco and Weef, a couple of folks who, I don't know if they're into sports betting, but may have been bugged a time or two about donating to their university.
Yes, let's bring them in and we can ask them those questions, because I am all the curious about it. I want to know the details. So let's bring them in. Cue the thing.
Yeah, go ahead and drag them, and
I'll drag them
here.
I'll drag them. They're coming. Okay, the cavalry's coming. There we go.
Woo!
Hello.
Hey friends.
There we go.
Hi.
Oh, hello.
How's it going?
It's going.
It's going well. It's going pretty good.
I love it. Okay, I think we need to start off immediately. Has your university started bothering you about donations?
Me?
Are you still in college?
So yes, I am in college.
Okay.
I go to Santa Fe College in Gainesville.
Okay,
Online.
Gainesville.
But
Gotcha.
yeah.
Falco, has University of Miami bothered you relentlessly for donations since your graduation?
Well, the University of Miami is in Florida, but Miami University is in Ohio.
Yes, my apologies.
Which is, no, it's all good. That's a clarification that it always has to be said, but it's okay. I feel like they have, but it's it immediately just goes in the trash. And my wife and I, we typically get now what are Miami mergers. We started dating in college and we got married, so we're Miami mergers. There's a lot of people. That's kind of like a term. So of course that's another incentive for them to be like, hey, you should donate. And if you donate a large amount of money, we'll give you a really cool pin to put on your fridge. But no, we don't. We don't really do that as much, just because I was listening into your conversation earlier about like, I'm a recent graduate. I spent thousands and thousands of dollars here. That is the last thing that's on my mind, is to really give back. So
yeah, in my case, I gave them 2 years of free labor, so that's
they're
not getting anything from me.
Yeah, what the heck, man? Like, they'll live. They'll be fine, I'm sure.
Oh, well, thank you both for joining us today. I am so excited that we are going to get to do this episode to just kind of talk about LANs, because that is probably the hot new thing going on around the Splatoon community, is LANs galore. that, a lot of folks are saying LANs are the future of the Splatoon community. And I think there's just so much to break down. And you all have had such a big hand in a couple of things going on around the community with LANs. So, why don't we just kind of jump into it? We'll kind of jump around here. But why don't we start with Weef? You have Gator LAN that you were a part of. Can you kind of just break that down for us? Like, why don't we just start with what is Gator LAN in case folks don't know in our chat?
So Gator LAN is kind of a special case for Splatoon LAN because Gator LAN is a bunch of different games. Largest is always Smash Ultimate, but there's Melee tournaments, there's Mario Kart tournaments, there's all these different fighting games, team games as well, like Overwatch, Valorant, Marvel Rivals. I still only run the Splatoon event because that's the only one of those games that I actually am actively, competing in and that part of the community. But it is a free-to-enter tournament at the University of Florida. We run once in the spring and once in the fall. Usually February and October is like in the middle of those months, depending on what they want to do. I don't run the entire thing. Like I said, I only run the Splatoon event. It is run by Gator Gaming, most of it, and I just specifically organize the Gatorland part, or the Splatoon part specifically. Like I said, free to enter. It's a really it's really, really special. We run mostly volunteer equipment. It's, like I said, free to enter, so it's a unique experience for sure.
Oh, that's awesome. And this is run at the University of Florida, correct?
Yes, it sure is. So it's taking place every semester at the Wright Student Union, which is the large student union on campus at UF. It's one of the biggest buildings there, I think. I don't actually go to UF, but it's a huge event, or like it's a huge conference hall. So they have individual rooms for the smaller games, like little meeting rooms with little projectors, all the way to where we were last time, which was the second largest ballroom, the Ryan Ballroom, which is really large ballroom, and then they have a grand ballroom as well. So it's really cool. It's almost gives the feel of one of the larger LANs, but we're super tiny.
That's awesome. So how did you get involved with Gator LAN since you go to a different school? Like how close, well, okay, help me contextualize. How close is the Gainesville school versus UF? Like, are they like 10 minutes apart? Are they like 30 minutes? Like, what's the scope there?
So the college, Gainesville's a fairly small city. The college I went to was on the northwest side of the Gainesville, which is 15 minutes away from UF campus on like a really good day. Like less than 10 miles, really close. So I went to it, the first time I ever went was, I believe, I should have probably gotten my dates checked before this, but I believe it was February of 2023 was the first Gator LAN that I went to. And I just came as a participant. I had no idea what to go into it. It was around that time that I was really active in the community, and I was like, are there any LANs around me? And so I looked that up, I found Gator LAN. It was a very small event. I went as a participant and then went home a few months later, didn't really think a whole lot of it. And then I suddenly got a DM from the president of Gator Gaming at the time. And she was like, hey, our person who is running Splatoon cannot run Splatoon any longer. Do you want to help out? And so I thought, I have no tournament experience. I have no organizing experience with any other events. But if I don't do it, who else is? And so that's how I got involved, is I was like, if it's not me, who else? And I don't know if anyone else would have if I didn't step up like that.
Oh man, that's pretty cool though. I mean, it worked out. And so with all of that kind of said, Gator LAN is part of this now greater project, Falco, that you are running, the Splatoon LAN Championship Showdown. So how did the connection get made there? Like how did you realize that, hey, Gator LAN needs to be a part of this?
Yeah, so there's a network of local TOs that we just kind of communicate with, and I'm not a TO, but I'm a part of this communication network just because most of the tournaments have been streamed on Splatoon Tourney. So a lot of my communication has been that way. And looking at Gator LAN and looking at a ton of these other locals that just really seem to pop off and have a lot of teams. And, these aren't really locals that are just, we have 4 teams, we're going to play friendlies, we're going to, hang out for a few hours. Like, no, these are like competitive tournaments. These are competitive competitions. So, I was talking with Weef, I was talking with a few of the other TOs, and I feel like the conversation had already started just like from other people as well. But, eventually I think I was like, hey, like we can make this work. If we have 8 dedicated locals who want to be a part of a qualifier, it would be really great if we could integrate all of these lands somehow. And so that's kind of what we did. I had a few lands that were, on my list, and then a few are keeping my eye on and whatnot. But yeah, the 8 that we have so far, it has really been fantastic. And we're at the halfway point right now. We've had 4 lands, we have 4 to go, and it's only fitting we have like a 3-week break right now, just to kind of like, okay, we're at the halfway point. So coming up next is Sunset Surge, then Big Dapple, then New England, and then Sea Battle. So we've had the fortunate or unfortunate role of starting us off and setting the bar, but they did a fantastic job. And I remember Weef mentioning that I think you're like one of the only TOs too for the Splatoon side of Gatorland. So the fact that you can manage this all together is absolutely crazy. And I recall that you said during that day and the day before, you probably had like a 12-hour day of prepping, and then so 2 consecutive 12-hour days.
The day before, I wasn't actually able to do any prep because now I don't live in Gainesville anymore. I live about an hour south, and so I worked that day before too, and then I picked up some people who are flying in for the tournament from the airport. So I wasn't able to do the day before. I worked, and then I got home at like 12 a.m. and then I woke up 7 o'clock to get there for I think it was 12 o'clock start time. So that was hard, but wow. I was originally the only TO for a while. I did have the help of a streamer who, CKK, who I believe is pretty well known. So yeah, he's been my streamer this entire time, even since the first one I ran. And then also my girlfriend has also been helping me out a ton. That's Shallow Hydra. But this time I also brought a few other people along. B3 from the UF team stepped up to me last time. I was like, hey, I really would like to get involved. This is, my home school. I'd love to we played in this event, before you even started running it. And then a few other people helped me as well. Oculus, who actually ran it originally, was not able to run it for a few semesters and then moved back to Gainesville and then helped me out again. So I had a lot of help this time, but it was still really, really stressful. But I mean, it's worth it. I love it.
So just out of curiosity, if you can kind of shed some light on the numbers for us then, Weef, what were the numbers, I guess, in comparison to this qualifier in relation to like previous Gatorlands? Did you see like a slight influx of teams because this is now part of this greater event?
I did not see an influx. We were 17 teams last time, which I was absolutely blown away by, because last time it was right when I was graduating from a college program, so I was super stressed. I wasn't really preparing as much as I wanted to, so I was blown away by the fact that we had 17 teams. And this team, we also had 17 teams. But I know some I noticed some turnarounds. So there were a few teams that did not come the time before, and especially a few like higher level players that I noticed specifically came this time. It was like somebody drove from like North Carolina. Like we had people from all over the place come to this time.
Oh shoot!
That's crazy. Remind me. I think I talked to a couple of the UCF folks, like Elixir. I believe Elixir was there. There was about 10 collegiate teams from my understanding.
I just pulled up my Start GG not like 5 minutes ago.
Oh, perfect.
As it was 10 collegiate teams, and then that plus SCAD's team, they only had one team sign up, but they brought a whole posse of people too. They had a whole cheerleading squad. It was awesome.
Oh, that
so is pretty
cute.
Cool.
Yeah, I think Weef's event for Gatorland is unique in that way, where they had so many collegiate teams. H-Town Splashdown happened on Saturday. There were a few collegiate teams. They had a collegiate bracket. But that's that's kind of it. Gatorland has kind of really been a collegiate LAN, but also an open LAN, it seems like. I don't want to put words in your mouth, Weef, but that's kind of what it seemed to be like. And it's just really cool to see that community and camaraderie.
Yeah, that's exactly that's exactly how I would describe it as well. You're not putting words in my mouth at all. You stole the words from my mouth, actually. But even I sent in our LAN server, our TO server, the comparison of our overall crowd. I took a huge crowd shot for the first time, because the other times I was really overwhelmed. But this time I was able to take a big crowd shot, and then after that, the CCA people gathered everyone up, and they took a whole big shot there too. It was also fun because our CCA, it was something that I was not even involved with. They just asked for my permission. The CCA people ran a 2v2 tournament in our intermission.
Oh, that's so cool.
They didn't finish it, but they were able to finish it later on online. But
I never heard that one. Okay, that's so cool.
I don't know if it was entirely CCA people, but it was mostly, I believe.
Okay.
That's sick. I mean,
Yeah.
our CCA staff has got to tell us these things because we got both Elixir and CKK on our staff, and they were sharing pictures of the day. Weef, the big picture, the collegiate picture you're describing, we got that on hand. We're like, this is the greatest thing ever. Like, how cool. Like, it was a huge body of people. It was awesome.
And even from the beginning, because I believe it's really hard to kind of know the history because there's a few other people involved who I don't think work, I mean, who I haven't really been in contact with. But since the beginning, it's been mostly the collegiate teams coming, with probably 1 or 2 teams that have signed up who weren't collegiate. The first Gatorland that I played on, the only one I've ever played on, I was on a team with Elixir. Shout out to Squid Squared from February of 2023. But, yeah, it was great. It's really been awesome to see it grow too, because like I said, the collegiate teams are always there. Like even teams that don't exist anymore, like Florida Gulf Coast came out a few times. And we went from, I believe it was 8 teams the first time, and to see it over double has been like nothing else. It's absolutely insane.
That's really freaking cool. So in that same vein, I want to kind of dissect a little bit the role of collegiate teams in a lot of these LANs, because, you know, Falco, as you pointed out, like Florida has very much become a hotspot for collegiate teams in general. I mean, here at the CCA staff, we talk about the arms race a lot, and the arms race is basically just a lot of teams picking up already pre-established, well-known names in the Splatoon community to play on their collegiate rosters. And Florida has been the center of that. So to kind of see all this culminate into Gatorland's really cool. And then, like you mentioned, H-Town had their own side bracket. You know, we've run at Riptide a few times too. So, you know, one thing I'm not exactly sure what the question here is specifically, but I kind of want to just discuss, you know, how have collegiate teams impacted a lot of these LANs that are going on and kind of helped shape what a lot of people are calling the future of Splatoon?
So here, there's 2 things probably I would talk about here. One is obviously the volunteer help. I feel like the people who are coming from other colleges in Florida feel more ownership towards this really cool, mostly Florida college land that takes place on a college campus. And so I've had more people, most of the people who have reached out and volunteered with me have been other college students. So that was really cool. But the second thing is they just bring a lot of the energy. It's always, because these collegiate teams, they've fought each other before. They know each other. They're in this community. I mean, so they're bringing the energy. They are able to, form little side brackets like that. They're able to hype each other up. They're able to know each other going in, which I think it just kind of breaks the ice for a lot of people, and it was really cool to see.
To add on to that too, I think it kind of, for a lot of these LANs that we see, especially some of the smaller ones, you typically don't have full-fledged teams who are going. When you have collegiate teams who are participating at these events, they're already an established team, whether it's in CCA or a group of friends who have already been playing together, rather than, oh, we need a +1 for this tournament. We're looking for a +2. Me and my friend, we want to play, but we need others. So you have this established network, and like we've said, it kind of, you have that environment where, oh, we know we've faced you before. We can put a name to the face. The 4 of us have faced the 4 of you. So it makes it, I think it just makes it so much more exciting.
Gatorland last fall, I believe it was Night Sharks, placed much higher than I seeded them, much higher than I thought they would get, against some really powerful players. I believe they made it, my memory is really bad, but I believe they made it into Grands.
Or Grands, yeah, they were, you're right.
They made it into Grands, and they took a few games off of these really good players, and so that was, that was really cool to see them, just because they already have that synergy going back in.
I love how you called that out, Weef, the synergy, because a lot of these collegiate teams have spent the time together, right? There's this sense of camaraderie and energy. So they can also come in and kind of surprise teams that are just pickups that just happen to kind of throw themselves together, versus these collegiate teams are coming in with, coordination, synergy. They spent time together, so there's chemistry there. They've been in in-person settings. I'm sure you've probably seen, both of you, at Riptide or Gatorland or other LANs. You're going to see a lot of folks coming out to their first time LANs. And a lot of these collegiate teams have done some sort of LAN experience, whether it's at like a big convention or a smaller one at their local universities or other local groups. So I'm really glad that you called that out, because I think that kind of influences and shapes kind of the future of just Splatoon LANs in general, a lot of influence is going to be collegiate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it certainly helps as well, like with collegiate teams, is that a lot of times to go to these LANs, like, because LANs can't be like right down the street, you know, you're always gonna have to do some form of traveling, whether it is, you know, maybe a couple hours drive, or if you have to fly. Like, in a way, it's almost easier when your entire team typically lives about 10 minutes from each other.
Yeah.
That you could all kind of pick each other up and say, hey, like, get in the car, girls, we're going on a road trip, like...
We're going shopping.
Yeah, there you go. But nonetheless, it's there. I don't know. I think that makes it a lot easier because, like, I know UCSD, they basically say, all right, everyone get in the car, like 2 different cars. We're sending 10 people up to like SoCali, for example. And at least in some colleges' cases, they'll typically reimburse gas, or in rare cases, flights out to some of these actual events like Riptide, like LTC, rest in peace. But but I think that certainly does play a really big factor, because now you can even reach out to some of these teams and like really have some sort of targeted approach of like, hey, I know you guys have an established program, an established team. Why don't you come out to this event? And it's a little bit easier to coordinate because you basically extend an invite to one person, you're extending an invite to 5 people.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good way of putting it. I fully agree.
Yeah, that never even crossed my mind, the fact that it makes it much easier to travel together too. But you're right, it's just all the logistics seem to be a lot easier when when it's involved in the collegiate scene. You're right.
Yeah, and of course, here with Gatorland, we have our 2 UF teams who literally live.
Yes.
Like they could walk to the event if they wanted to.
That's crazy. I would love to walk to my local LAN. That's amazing.
Oh, I remember the days, but those are now long behind me, sadly.
A few Gatorlands ago, I forgot my Splatoon 3 cartridge for the stream setup at my house, and so I was able to just drive 10 minutes there and just drive back and get it. It was really fun.
No,
That's
that
a
happened.
luxury.
That happened to CD Woomy at like Calturno or something like that. I forget which event it was. Like, bro forgot his controller. It was like 5 minutes away. I'll be back. So like sometimes it just works out to just be close by. And being a college hub makes it so easy.
I know some people who have forgot a controller, and I think for Riptide, they're like, I need to go to Best Buy, I need to go to GameStop, and they'll buy, you know, a $50-$60 controller for that. But yeah, if you can avoid that, that's always ideal.
You know, I think this acts as a good segue to ask questions about kind of, you know, we talked a lot about the bright future of collegiate LANs, but I'm sure this came with a lot of trials and tribulations, right? Especially with this whole concept of the Splatoon like LAN Championship Showdown. So I want to hear from both of your perspectives, I guess. What are some things you kind of learned from your perspective about Gatorland, and Falco for you, the upcoming 4 LANs up on the docket? From both of your perspectives, what are some things that you've learned and hoping that you'll kind of try to apply for the next one?
If you want to go first.
Sure, yeah. So again, since I'm not really a TO, I'm just kind of observing all of these LANs, and of course, like, I'm going to compare them against each other, but not in a way of like, oh, this one's better than this one, but just more of like, how are they different from each other? And I think it's really cool to see every TO's personality be put into these LANs, because every stream is so different, coming from the venue, the production, the environment for what we see as a spectator, and kind of all that. And it is really, really cool to see. Yeah, since we have about half of them done now and half still to come, it's exciting. I think this builds a lot of hype around the tournaments too. And I mean, we've seen this is the most viewership that we have seen for some of these locals that are on Splatoon tourney as well. So it's always great to see those numbers go up, and to have, I think, more people interested in it now. I was even thinking, for H-Town last weekend, I think like the top 4 teams, I'm like, all these teams are really, really good, you know? And I'm like, man, it's unfortunate that not all of them can get a bid to play in the finale, but I just think it kind of reignited that spark when, you know, a lot of people will say we don't really have much going on. Now, of course, this was announced prior to Ludi. So Ludi is in full swing. Obviously, CCA is in full swing. So we're busy. Everyone is very busy. But it's just really cool to see it kind of blossom and develop. And I'm very excited for late April when we have our finale.
It's so exciting. For me, one of the things I already talked about was I learned that I should not be doing it alone. I need to reach out for people to help. Because it got a lot less stressful when I had, you know, one of my friends, Pickles, flew out from California, brought 115 pounds or something of equipment to come and help me. Switch docks, everything, all that stuff. So one, reaching out for people to help. 2, also just not being afraid to ask. What was the first thing when I reached out to Falco to be part of the LAN Championship Showdown? I'm super anxious about asking things of people, even if it's completely innocuous, but then also with working with the venue, because it's not my own event, because I have to, you know, go through these liaisons through Gator Gaming, and they have what their club regulations and what the university wants. We weren't able to move the tables basically at all for Gatorland because the right student union was just like, we can't move the tables. So that was a really weird thing. But also, even just sticking up for my community, there was a weird thing where they were considering giving Marvel Rivals the entire ballroom and us being in the Senate chamber, which we had, you know, 17 teams signed up. They had 5, or maybe it was 6, but that's like 30 people. So I stuck up for my community, and I got us in the ballroom where we had so much more space. I did end up walking 5 miles that day, just back and forth across the ballroom, but it was great. But just, yeah, like sticking up for myself. It's also been just, you know, the technical stuff that I've had to learn. I'm not a very techie person. I am a zookeeper. I work with living things. I don't work with technology. I cannot. Wow. But slowly I've really gotten a good grasp of how the setups have worked, what works the best, the tournament stuff, which I'm not a numbers person either. So trying to configure the brackets in my head has been a nightmare, but it's been great. And just everything. Gatorland is also, because it's a free event and because it's part of the college, it's all volunteer equipment. So figuring out how to best encourage people to bring their monitors. Everything else is easy. It's really easy to convince somebody to bring their Switch dock if it's in a backpack, but bringing a monitor, tearing apart your computer setup at home, and risking that's been a huge challenge, because that has been our limit in the past. We just haven't had enough monitors. So we had like 2 setups and everyone else was playing on the floor. But over the time, like we had 4 setups this time, which was perfect. We had enough time to really cycle things through. And it's just learning all of like how to not manipulate people, but just, yeah, like gently encourage people. I brought donuts for people last few times, and that seems to have encouraged people. Like, that brought some people out.
Bring a monitor, get a donut.
Exactly.
Dude, that is genius.
Oh my god.
And especially at a college campus, people will do anything for free food. You want my monitor? Sure. You want my firstborn child? I'll take that donut, regardless.
Oh my god.
Well, kind of in that, same vein again, I actually want to kind of pivot the topic here a little bit, because I think we all have some very different perspectives about working with universities. And I want to get your opinions on that, because Falco, I know that you've been working at a university. Weef, you got to work with a university that you're not necessarily attending, but you had to kind of jump through their hoops to make this all happen. And Mizuno and I have had to work with universities to get our Splatoon programs up and running when there was no foundation for anything. So I just generally, what is it like, working with a university to try to get stuff done, especially from like an esports perspective? I know, Falco, that's not necessarily what you're doing, but you did get to take an esports class. So I'm kind of curious, what sort of things have you learned working with universities, and how can we sort of apply that to our scene?
Yeah, so because I work at a university, I can take courses there for free. And this is the first semester they offered an introduction to esports management. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm taking that. And of course it's an evening class too. So I'm like, I don't even have to alter my work schedule around or anything. But it's very different than what my background personally is. So since it's Introduction to Esports Management, it really encompasses the entire scope of the esports industry. And that's really nothing I'm familiar with, because the extent of my esports knowledge is just with Splatoon. Now, of course, I like watching some Smash events when it's like Genesis, or if I'm at Riptide or LTC, like I'll walk in the Smash room just to kind of see what's going on. But really, that's it. Like, I don't play Valorant, I don't play Rocket League, I don't play League of Legends, I don't play any of these the major games that you would consider to be an esport. So it's interesting. So I'm learning more of like, okay, who are the stakeholders, how to make money. And from anybody I've worked with in Splatoon, nobody's in it to make money, nor does anybody really make money from it anyways. So it's it's kind of like an apples and oranges comparison. But it's still really informative too. I think the difficulty now is I'm working with kids in the class who are 10 to 13 years younger than me, since I'm in my 30s. So, and I don't need that. Like, I don't need this class at all. Like, it doesn't matter. But these kids, it's an elective they can take, and so it's a very different working environment. But it's been a lot of fun so far. And right now at the University of Dayton, they have an esports lounge, and they have a varsity Rocket League team. And I've tried to, spark interest in like, hey, it's like their opportunity for Splatoon here, because I'm in their server. And I did find one person who says that like, hey, like I used to play a lot of Splatoon. I, was a top 500 in the Tech region. I've never played competitive, and the only content I consume is watching ProChara videos on YouTube. So I was like, okay, like that's a start. That is a good start to getting anybody involved and interested in competitive Splatoon. So it's interesting kind of starting fresh that way. But it's really cool that I can kind of get my hands on that and help and potentially see this scene grow. And as you both did, I'm sure, where it wasn't anything you kind of like took over, you helped build the foundation of that scene at your respective schools. So that's kind of what I hope to do. But I'm not gonna be too pushy about it, obviously. But I don't know, it's a new opportunity for me, which is, I think, very exciting.
That's really cool. I mean, yeah, pretty different perspective there. I mean, and I'm sure that you deal with fun university logistics, politics stuff all the time anyways, with your job. But like Weef, as someone that has to organize alongside a university, and has to deal with all of their hoops, what has that been like?
So, being like one of the many tournament organizers for Gatorland, I didn't have to deal directly with the university as much, but there were just like, not necessarily red tape, but there were hard and set rules that we couldn't, break. For example, the tables, they were like super strict about us not moving the tables. Finally, we were able to, slide them around a little bit to make a little bit more room, but it was that kind of thing where it's just a little bit stricter. You can't, do as much as you could at, whatever other places usually, but we've been able to bother their equipment is one of the biggest things. Like the Gator Gaming Club is more so who I interact with, and they provided us 16 monitors last time. I asked them if they wanted to buy us some LAN adapters because I wasn't sure if they had enough, and they bought us 8 LAN adapters. They were rented a few switch docks, so we were going to be able to use them if we didn't have enough. And that kind of thing, just working with them, making sure my requests are known, and because everyone involved in that was so busy, just, gentle reminders, like refreshing and checking in with people, making sure that everyone knows what's going on. It was just more so of a, test of my communication skills, working with a bunch of different people. I didn't deal directly with the university as much.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, that's fortunate. I'm gonna say fortunate. Because Mizuno, I'll actually kind of, tap you on this one, but, working with Purdue as you guys were getting the Purdue team up and running, I mean, what was your experience with that? Because I think you and I managed to share a lot of stories along the way about, silly little things that we've always had to go through, and that were always fun.
There's a lot, I think to Wee's point, there's just a lot of rules and processes that are pretty difficult and tedious to navigate, right? Weef's example of moving tables or to like find the proper space. I think space is always such a weird issue with universities. To the Purdue point, if you don't have a collective like group with established processes of how to book a room for an event or how to host an event somewhere at a university, you can't just host an event willy-nilly and using university equipment. You have to go through the proper respective channels. And as a university student on your own, if you're kind of tackling this for the first time, it's really difficult to navigate and communicate what you're looking for, who to talk to. Technology wise, like maybe there's outdated systems or outdated processes you have to go through. So I remember instances where some of our club meetings, we got stuck out in a hallway or we're bouncing around week to week from different laboratories to find different, like computer labs. Something as simple as just finding a place to play Splatoon, the technological capabilities, right? So I think a lot of, to Weef's point, just a lot of different hoops to go through, and you kind of have to keep talking and pushing to get to the right people, the right place, the right thing to get to, whatever it is you're trying to achieve. And I think, to Weef's point with testing out those communication skills, that was a big challenge back in the day. And I think universities and teams and, new scenes popping up at these universities, they're going to have to continue to push through that red tape and jump through those hoops. And DRF, I'm sure you could speak to similar stories with trying to get Triton moving, like literally moving, like going from place to place, doing thing to thing, right?
Yeah, no, getting things done at a university is a roller coaster with lots of ups and downs because you need to, make sure you're talking to the right people, and if those right people are actually listening and interested, how can you make them interested? A lot of it had to do with us having to do a lot of the work ourselves, and then basically coming to them and say, hey, here's all the work that's already done. Can you just sign off on this and just say, we can do this? And that's actually how UCSD esports as a whole got put together, even before Splatoon. The only reason that UCSD ended up picking up Splatoon was because we found other ways to get the Triton Splatoon club team up to Genesis 7. And we found a couple of, I'm not necessarily loopholes, but methods, I'm going to say, to still get the university to fund that. And then we ran into UCSD esports people up at Genesis. And they were like, oh, you guys are here. That's really cool. Have you ever, do you think that you would be a good fit for UCSD esports? And then that whole train got going. So yeah, it's a lot of pushing and figuring things out yourself, and then going to the university, and then now the university's like, oh man, we're suddenly super interested, come play at our esports center. And you're like, dang, this is like awesome, we're hitting new highs. And then you get to the esports center and they're like, oh, but we don't have supports for Switches. Oh shoot, okay, now we're back to another low. Hey, we're gonna be giving you all funding and jerseys, to go travel and participate at these LANs. Oh, new high again. So it's a roller coaster of emotions, a roller coaster of logistics, but it is a lot of fun. You just need to be very motivated, passionate, and have patience. And working with a university can pay off in a number of different ways.
Mm-hmm. Well said. Well said. Bravo.
Thank you. Well, as we kind of continue to jump around, with LANs and working with colleges and stuff like that, I do want to dig a little bit more into the LAN Championship Showdown. Falco, we're halfway through now. So one thing I kind of want to touch on is, like, what do you hope that players and spectators, get out of the Championship Showdown? Like, why should our community be caring about LANs being such a focal point of this community right now?
Yeah, I mean, as somebody who has been to 9 LANs, I've been to 4 Riptides, 3 LTCs, and then Mizuno and I actually went to like a local Columbus, Ohio one in late 2022. The LANs are the best part about being involved in the Splatoon community. And it's really nice that throughout 2023 and 24, we saw a ton of these LANs just pop off and really grow. So I was trying to find a way that it could really be integrated, the LANs could be integrated with each other, and something that, has stakes, but is also not like a super, I don't know, it's not it's just kind of a one-off thing. So it's not like this is the future of LANs. That's not how I'm picturing it by any means. Just more of this is a different opportunity that we can get people excited about Splatoon and a way that people can go to some of these LANs. Because if LANs grow, no matter where they are, that's a bonus. That's a huge plus, because there's going to be a lot of people watching saying, like, oh, I live in the Seattle area. Next Sea Battle, I could go. Or, oh, I live in St. Louis. I would love to start up a St. Louis local. So it really sparks that interest in creating a local, which again, is just the best part of Splatoon. So the fact that we can kind of elevate that hype and try and build up some of that, build up the hype too, I think it's exciting, and really that's what I want to get out of this is to integrate the LANs and to get people excited for these LANs who typically wouldn't go or didn't think they had any opportunity to go to any.
Yeah, I know myself. I stalked Twitter, at mentions of Gatorland just to see if anyone was really talking about it, and I saw quite a few people who had retweeted or like quote tweeted the original post, being like, "I didn't know that this existed near me. I saw them at the event." So like it did draw in people, for sure. Like just the publicity was really, really nice.
Exactly, and I think maybe, and Weef, you could probably speak to your Gatorland experience too. The LAN experience is one of the greatest like things that you could do, like just in general, right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
like like describe Gatorland. Like if you were an attendee or viewer, like going through Gatorland, it's got to be the greatest time, right?
Yeah, it's like you're in this huge room and there's not only your event, but there's another event going on. There's random Marvel Rival players at their station and they're all popping off. And then it's just a lot of chaos. There's a lot of moving parts. You're waiting an hour for your set and then suddenly you have to get on stream, or just a lot of different stuff. We had a salmon run side bracket that people who were waiting around were able to play, and a bunch of people formed connections with people who they did not, because it didn't have to be your normal team. You were able to sign up with any 4 players. So a bunch of people just found some random people and just, started playing and started getting along and started making conversations. I had a huge roll of paper that I rolled out that a bunch of people drew on, which we had a bunch of people from SCAD, which is an art school, which then, of course, it ended up amazing, and I have it actually right here next to me on the floor, because all of my LAN stuff is still on the floor because I haven't had time to pack it up yet. It's
oh my God.
all right there,
Nice.
there. That was on the list for
Nice.
this weekend, but I didn't get to it. But it's always a little bit messy because it's super hard to coordinate 80 plus people, along with volunteers, along with technical errors, along with my errors in bracket making, because I'm really bad at it. But it's always a good time and people are always super understanding. I see people, going out to eat afterwards. People, will leave after, if they get knocked out, they leave and will go out to eat. And I see pictures of that posted everywhere. And I see so many people talking with people who I know that they probably didn't know beforehand.
That's pretty
I think it's the sense of community that a LAN gets to bring people together, I think, is the big draw as to why like the championship showdown is going to bring a lot more attention to these LANs and to the next Gator LAN, right? Like that's going to draw people in. Now those people on Blue Sky, they now know why and where this thing was happening, right? So I think the sense of community that LANs bring, whether it be a Riptide or a local, right? I think that's a big draw for people to get really into Splatoon.
Mm-hmm.
Or the championship showdown. I posted that video on the Splatoon Tourney YouTube channel, which I never post anything on there. Well, there are VODs of Ludi tonight and stuff like that, but I never post anything. But it had 1,500 views, and
Wow.
that blew me away. I was like, oh, this is getting out. And it circulated pretty well on Twitter and on Blue Sky, but I'm sure other people just stumbled across it on YouTube as well. So that's got me very excited to see what's in store for the next 4 lanes that we have coming up and for the rest of the LANs that we have this year, potentially next year.
No, honestly, like I think the trailer for the LAN Championship Showdown is one of my favorite just creative pieces that has been put together in all of the Splatoon community history.
It's all Pepe. That was all Pepe.
Yeah.
That's my goat right there. That's my goat.
I know. Literally I did the voiceover, I wrote the script, but Pepe got all the footage, did everything else. So yeah, it was really cool.
The talent that we have in this community is just incredible.
Right.
That insane. Like, just in general though, I think the great thing about all of these LANs coming together, you know, really trying to funnel in towards this championship, all of the creative work that's come out, because even then, like, it started with the central like trailer of, hey, here's these 8 LANs that are going to be going on, and then from there everybody else started putting out their own, you know, marketing and started kind of crafting their own storylines that again are going to all contribute towards this championship. You know, we've seen trailers for Sunset Surge, for H-Town, for New Ink LAN, or I get the two New York and Boston ones mixed up. I think they both put out a trailer, but you know, all that, like Sunset Surge and H-Town, like, have been beefing with each other online. Like, that's
so fun.
So
I love it. That's all Dio and Pepe, but it's so fun.
Jax.
It is, and that's going to be so important as we kind of get ready for this showdown, because once we have all these 8 winners, you're going to start getting folks that are rallying behind their region, or, you know, some of their favorite players that have been coming out to these events to just, you know, say, hey, you know, like, I'm here repping Seattle, like, in the chat, like, I'm here repping California, Arizona, Florida, the Midwest, the Northeast. Like, everybody's going to be, like, they're excited to be cheering on their champions. So in a way, I think that this is going to be something that Nintendo has never been able to capture with the World Championships. Like, yes, we're over here saying like USA, you know, when it comes to the World Championships, but there's something different about this LAN Championship showdown, and that I just don't think has ever been captured before.
That you've met these players, you know them, you watched them perform, you popped off when they scored a touchdown, what am I talking about? A slam dunk on the Rainmaker pedestal in overtime or whatever. Like, you know, like, you've seen them, and so that's, like, that just definitely adds a lot to it.
So, this kind of leads into a very, very, very theoretical question, because I know it's way too early to, you know, project about the future, you know, of, you know, what does the LAN Championship Showdown, you know, mean for Splatoon's legacy or whatever. But if, let's say, you know, in the future, this is a massive success to the point that Big N catches wind of it, you know, and approaches, you know, let's say both of you, about, hey, you know, we see that this is the next big thing. You know, is there anything just right off the bat that you're kind of like, hey, yeah, like 100% this is something that we would like to see grow and become, you know, a big part of the Splatoon community? Is this something that is better off rooted in the grassroots scene? Like, what is your just, you know, way too early take on the future of LANs with the Splatoon Championship Showdown?
I mean, I'm always open to conversation if it comes up. I think it just really depends on, you know, what is being offered, perhaps, I guess. But yeah, I mean, I would be interested, yes. Do I think that would happen? I don't know. Like, I don't know anything. You know what I mean? Would it be cool if it happened? Sure, it would be really cool. But yeah, I'd definitely be open to conversations about it. You know, I'm proud of what we as a grassroots scene have done. So, so if that's the progress and the work that everybody puts in to get the word out, and, you know, that's what makes them hear about it, then that's really great. So my ears are always open. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah. Since Gatorland is such a huge event, like, it's a really large Smash event as well. It's one of the, I think it's like the regional for the Southeast, if I'm not mistaken. Don't know much about Smash at all, but I know Nintendo is already pretty well aware of Gatorland's existence. We do have a license that we had to get because it's so many people. And then, but also in the past, somebody who used to run the Splatoon event reached out to me and be like, hey, you should reach out to Nintendo for free swag, because, and you know, 2019, they gave us a bunch of free stuff when we reached out to them. So, I mean, for me, I wouldn't be opposed to it, because, I mean, clearly they are okay with the existence of Gatorland, obviously, but it would just kind of depend also on what Gator Gaming themselves would have to say too, because that is who I operate under. They get the final say in that kind of thing.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and I think too, if it would kind of trickle down from there, like I of course would be all ears, but the 8 as of now, like the 8 locals that are part of this, I would want to make sure that everything aligns with their values and what they can receive. I know Weef's in a situation where Weef's is the only one that's associated with a college, so things are definitely going to be trickier that way, whereas the other 7 are just kind of doing their own thing, but that is something to consider. You're right.
Yeah, no, that is all completely fair. But it's exciting. It's exciting just to even just put that prospect out there, because like it just seems like we're already experiencing massive success on this front. So like I said earlier, with Mizuno, a man could dream, right?
You're always up in the clouds, man.
Hey, you got to dream big in order to make some things happen.
Exactly.
Like, it always starts with a thought of like, hey, what if? Just what if? And that's where things, start coming together. I mean, heck, the CCA was just a dream of UCSD's and Purdue's. And I mean, look, 5 years later, we're here with 166 teams from God knows how many universities. I don't even remember.
So cool.
I think we're up to like 90 unique
90?
universities.
Wow.
And I think, are we at 3
like that.
Canadian universities too? I think it's up to 3 now.
I think it's 3. I think we've
Algonquin.
yeah,
I can only name
Algonquin,
Alberta.
and Fanshawe.
Fanshawe, that's the new one from this season.
Yeah,
Fanshawe
shout out to
Fuel.
Jeannie.
Yeah,
That's really
shout out
cool.
to our folks up
Hey.
north. Because it's great to see all these different collegiate teams also being a part of all of this at the end of the day. So
Mhm.
it's
Yeah,
all
and-
good stuff.
And then there's even like the NSE. I mean, over at the UK side of things, they had, I want to say, 20 teams across the UK competing in their league. And that's been really cool. They've been very steadily growing as well. The UK, I'm sure, is a little bit more limited in its ceiling just due to sheer land mass. I don't know how many colleges you could fit in this bad boy, but like, nonetheless, it's really, really cool just to kind of see the growth. And I know even then on the NSE side of things, they had a number of LANs centered around collegiate stuff. That's actually how the NSE, I believe, started, was they did a couple of LAN qualifiers, and I think they had partnered with Nintendo to do like a central finals for all of their LAN qualifiers. So like the top 4 colleges all met at I think it was called Insomnia, I think was the name of the LAN. And then the winner of that actually got a automatic ticket into the UK championship. So it was a really crazy sequence of events that, again, only one could dream of here in North America. But all that to say, super cool things going on with LANs. I do think that for the sake of time, we'll start to, wrap things up here just a little bit. But I don't know, Mizuno, if you had any other questions you wanted to throw out there.
No, I think DRF, you and I both have the same question of, these teams in the championship showdown. They're fighting for gold here, right? Representing their region. I know it's a little early, but Weef, from your perspective, how do you think our Florida team is going to perform in the championship showdown?
Oh, they're going to take it home, baby. They're going to take it all the way.
Yeah.
Florida
They
has
are
a very good
very
team. They have
good
a very strong
players,
team.
yeah.
They very strong.
You heard it here, folks. The over under. No, let me stop with that.
No, Mizuno. Oh no.
No. They're the favorites.
Falco, from your early takeaway, I mean, we have 4 champions locked in and 4 LANs to go. And off of your early rumblings, what are there any LANs that are jumping out to you as like, hey, this region seems like they're going to be coming in pretty hot?
So of the teams who've qualified now, I think Booyah Bay's winners are looking pretty strong. That's Nico, Helix, Muti, Clefapig, and Rydia. I think that's going to be a very strong team. I'm very curious to see who's going to come out of Big Dapple. In the past, we've had very strong players come out of that region. So it's gonna be fun. But I don't know. It's really hard to tell, and that's the exciting part of this. You never know who's going to show up to some of these LANs. people that we maybe didn't expect to go to a LAN, or one that somebody's traveling from far away. I know one of the winners from H-Town will be at Sunset Surge. I don't know who that is. But so, just the fact that people are traveling, they are flying to some of these locals is really cool.
Yeah, like I said, Lexi, one of our qualifiers, is from Atlanta. She drove all the way down here, stayed at my house, and then I drove her up day of to Gainesville.
That's crazy.
I believe everyone else on that team is old. Dat kid on UF's or on our team has been going since years. Like, he's been probably going since before I started attending and organizing. So, I don't know, it's really cool.
Man, well, I'm rooting for the winners of the Chai Shoals, because I got to root for the Midwest in some capacity. So go Midwest, represent.
I think I'm just kind of stuck between, I'm perfectly in the midpoint right now between Booyah Bay and Sunset Surge. So
Sure, yep.
For Sunset Surge, it sounds like, there's a super team being built over there. So it might, obviously, like you said, Falco, it could be surprises of who's coming through, because you never know. People have flown to greater extents to be at LANs, so we could always get some surprise guests. But if that, Pepe Shiny team that I've heard is being put together pans out, that's probably the team I'm gonna have to end up rooting for, even though it's out of state. I will say I am experiencing a fair bit of FOMO here, as someone who has won 7 straight locals, to then have the next series of locals be locals that I just cannot attend whatsoever. I'm a little bit sad, but it is
Understandable.
okay.
If it makes you feel any better, I'm not going to any of them, and nor have I ever been to any of them, but I would love to. Hey, we'll wait till Ohio or Indiana local comes around. And Mizuno and I will be there. We'll be there.
We'll be there, trust. Yeah. It's nearby.
Next showdown, 16 locals. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, if only.
Again, pushing the bounds here, but well, Weef, Falco, thank you both so much for joining us in our chat today to kind of just go over everything that is going on with LANs, and how collegiate kind of applies to some of that as well. Do either of you have sort of parting thoughts to share with our audience or with us here?
My biggest parting thought, that's what I've been thinking for a while, when the original announcement got out, so many people in the comments of those posts are saying, why isn't there one in X city? Why isn't there one in Nebraska or wherever? You gotta be the change. You gotta do it. It's gotta be you. It's complicated and it's hard and it's tough, but it's so worth it. I've done a lot of really cool things in my life so far, but it's one of the top things that I've done. It's so incredible. So be the change you want to see in the world.
Yeah, all of these locals just come from somebody with an idea. It wasn't. It's not handed to you on a silver platter. It's all built up. So like we've said, if you want to see it happen, you got to make it happen. And I completely agree with that. And that's kind of what we did with the LAN Championship Showdown. We saw an opportunity that we could have these organizations work together, and we did. And now it's gone very successfully so far, and I'm very happy with it.
That is the best parting thoughts that you could ask for. Seriously, here's the Emmy, here's the Golden Globe.
Well, thank you both again. Go ahead and plug yourselves real quick if there's anything you want to plug, your socials or the LANs that you're working with, whatever it may be. Falco, we'll start with you.
Yeah, you can find me, Falco, on Blue Sky. You can find me doing everything for Splatoon tourney 7 days a week because Ludi Tonight never sleeps, which is why there's a game going on right now. So
is there actually?
They just ended. Kraken 28, Div 9. Kraken 28s beat Crash 5-2. Coming up next is Div 9, Hammerhead Sharks versus Power Stars. So I'll be over there after this. But
we'll send a raid over there.
Well, definitely wasn't a plug to do that or anything, obviously, but I appreciate that. But yeah, find me, Falco Flower on Blue Sky, and just all around the Splatoon community. Thank you.
Weef.
For me, on any of my socials, Twitter, Blue Sky, it's either Weef Slider or just Weef, which is WEEF. You can find my wonderful event that I try my best to run at Florida Splatoon on both Twitter and Blue Sky. And there's also a Discord that you can find in those links here if you're ever interested. But
Awesome. Thank you both so much for coming out and speaking to us today and the rest of our little collegiate community. We'll hope to catch up another time, and thanks again. So, bye. Ta-ta.
Thank you.
Thanks, folks. And that was Falco and Weef. Falco of Splatoon turning into LAN Championship Showdown, Weef of Gator LAN. So, I mean, Mizuno, that was just awesome. It's really cool to be able to see everything. Like, this really just feels like it's been one big puzzle that's been put together, and in a way, almost like taking this community in a whole new direction.
It is, and I think a lot to Weave's and Falco's points that so many people are involved in these lands and building it from the ground up and building upon it it is the right puzzle pieces put together, and it's just wonderful to see that a lot of these collegiate teams now can start participating in these LAN events and start putting into, participating in them, joining them, being a part of these communities. And I just can't wait for the next 4 showdowns, championship showdown LANs to happen. I have my eyes on those, even though I'm rooting for the Chai Shoal winners. And I think there's just so much more to come with all these LANs sprouting up and growing and flourishing to, where we truly want to see them. And of course, Weef and Falco, wonderful folks to speak to. They're great lights in this community. This was just a great conversation with them.
Oh yeah, no, it's definitely one of my favorite conversations that we've had on the podcast to date. And collegiate teams, keep going to these locals. Like, if just honestly, keep going to these locals. Take those CCA pictures. Like, show that the collegiate team is backing these locals, because I mean, it goes hand in hand. Like, it's just a perfect match to have, all these collegiate teams, and being able to take advantage of the resources that you do have, despite the shortcomings of your internet, to come to these lands and participate and, represent. I just think it's so essential. And then, an additional thing, like, we didn't really get to dive into it here, Mizuno, but like the collegiate specific lands, start to become a whole new piece to the puzzle as well. Where we've had Road Trip, we've had the Purdue Invitational, we have UNCG running their LAN. And I think that as we start to see these community locals start to sprout, I think that's the next natural step is for more of these collegiate programs to start developing lands themselves to, 1, serve for their collegiate regions, and then 2, eventually maybe even open up to their communities.
Exactly, and these local collegiate lands, Riptide, University of North Carolina, Greensboro, Purdue, they're going to bring a lot more to these communities and flourish them, right? That's how, Weef was sharing that, SCAD. That's a Georgia team coming down to Florida for these events, because this is a region, Gatorland was region specific to Florida and just the southeast area. Having these collegiate specific lands allow these connections and the broader collegiate community to flourish. So, to your point, I think we also need to have a closer eye on some of these smaller collegiate specific lands popping up. And I think with them coming up, at least the Greensboro one is coming up. I think it's in the end of March, if I remember correctly.
Announced that? I don't know. I haven't heard anything about it recently, but it is about the time of the year that runs.
I could have sworn it was either at the end of March or the end of April. I'm sure someone will fact check us and school us here and now. But I'm sure, there's other projects in the works. And, in order to make these things happen, a lot of passionate, hardworking people are putting in their hearts and souls into it. So I'm really excited to see how all of these turn out in the future. So, I mean, but lands are great. I think that's a good way to conclude this, right?
Lands are absolutely fan-freaking-tastic. Like, there's nothing else that beats the feeling of being at a LAN, even just as a spectator. So, but I know, there's a lot of LAN projects in the works. There's a lot that, I think is still in the works and hasn't been announced. So I think regardless, LANs are a central part of the future of this community. Until the Switch 2 comes out, until Splatoon 4 becomes a thing or whatever, I'm excited for folks to just continue to come to these events and build community, because that's what we are at the end of the day, is one big community.
Cute. Well, I think that's a great way to kind of tie it up into a little neat, pretty bow. DRF, I think now's a good time to wrap things up, kind of plug the CCA a little bit. I mean, what else are we supposed to plug? Ourselves? Nah, we're plugging the CCA.
I was gonna say, my outro always ends with, and you could always find me over at the CCA covering all things collegiate Splatoon. So like we'll just focus on that part. Tomorrow there will be matches here on the CCA channel and through the rest of the weekend. And then of course culminating in our Sunday night football match over on IPL. So all of that production stuff is getting settled as we speak. So you are not going to want to miss it. A lot of good matches are going to be played coming up. So I think that's all there is to plug for now. But that aside, my understanding is keep an eye out on social media is another thing that I have heard. Hopefully there is some additional fun things to come out soon.
For sure. Well, as always, CCA Splatoon on socials. Make sure to join the Discord server for all things related to the league and other happenings in the CCA. And keep an eye out for IPL matches. Again, Sunday Night Football. And I think let's call it here, DRF. This was a great session.
And break.
Break.
Thank you, folks, for joining us. This has been DRF and Mizuno. Shout out to our guest, Falco and Weef. We will see you all this weekend for some more CCA League Season 6 action.